Good morning or good evening, everyone. Imagine the open sky, the humming engines, the promise of flight, and then, in a terrible instant, everything changes. Every aviation crash is more than just a statistic. It is lives lost, families devastated, and a reminder that even in one of the safest modes of travel, risk remains. Today, I will take you on a journey through the real airplane crashes in the United States from 2024 to 2025. How many, what kinds, why they happened, and what they teach us. First, let's talk about some numbers to frame the scale, though honestly, the full picture is pretty complex. In 2024, the United States experienced 179 fatal aviation crashes, meaning accidents involving fatalities. Those crashes resulted in 306 deaths in that year. Meanwhile, total aviation incidents, including non-fatal ones, in 2024 numbered around 1,199, of which about 180 were fatal. As of early 2025, up to April, the NTSB recorded 250 aviation incidents or accidents in the United States. By mid-2025, reports claim that there have been 36 plane crashes or accidents in the U.S. so far, by July, according to one source. Another source states that in 2025, there have already been 19 deadly plane crashes in the U.S. with over 100 fatalities. In 2025, there was a particularly catastrophic event. On January 29th, a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter collided mid-air with an American Airlines regional jet near Washington, D.C., killing all 67 people aboard both aircraft. Also in 2025, a medical transport plane crashed in Philadelphia shortly after takeoff, killing 6 on board plus 1 person on the ground, and damaging homes. So, in summary, there are dozens of accidents each year. Many are non-fatal, but unfortunately some do result in severe loss of life. To understand how these crashes happen, we really need to look at what kinds of aircraft are involved, where they occur, and during which phases of flight they happen. When it comes to kinds of aircraft, many are general aviation or small private aircraft, like single-engine twin or training planes. These actually account for the majority of U.S. aviation accidents. There are fewer crashes involving commercial airlines, but when those do occur, they attract major public attention. Also included are helicopters, medical transport or air ambulance flights, and even military or mixed-use airspace collisions. Now let's talk about locations and flight phases. Many crashes occur near airports during takeoff, landing, or shortly after, when aircraft are flying low and the margins for error are just smaller. Some crashes happen over fields, rural areas, or in remote terrain, especially with general aviation flights. There are also crashes that involve mid-air collisions, particularly in constrained or busy airspace, like the DC collision we mentioned earlier. And then, some accidents involve runway excursions, engine failures, or just a loss of control. So let's look at a few real crash examples just to get a sense of what can actually happen out there. There was the DC mid-air collision, where a commercial jet, while descending toward Reagan National Airport, collided with a military helicopter over the Potomac River. Then there's the Philadelphia medical plane crash. That aircraft exploded shortly after takeoff and crashed into houses with the fire spreading really fast. And, in 2025, the FAA listed quite a few smaller accidents. For example, a Beechcraft 95 crashed near DeLand Municipal Airport on July 3rd, and a Cessna crashed in a field in Texas after departing a local airport. There are, plenty of others too. Now, understanding why these crashes happen is honestly crucial. One of the most common causes is mechanical failure or engine problems. A lot of incidents start with engine failure, loss of power, or some kind of component failure. For example, in one crash in 2025 near Denver, a Beech B-35 experienced a mid-air engine malfunction before going down. Another major factor is, pilot error, things like loss of control or misjudgment. Especially in general aviation, pilot decision-making, spatial disorientation, or improper maneuvering can really lead to crashes. Weather and environmental factors, play a huge role in aviation safety. Low visibility, storms, icing, and turbulence can contribute heavily, especially for small planes that lack advanced systems. Air traffic and the risk of collision in congested airspace is, honestly, a serious concern. The DC collision is a stark example. The helicopter and jet should have been separated, but were not. The NTSB cited over 15,000 near-miss events between helicopters and planes at the airport in years before the crash. Communication and procedural failures are, unfortunately, all too common. Failures in air traffic control, miscommunications, procedural lapses, or insufficient separation measures can lead to catastrophic conflict. Design, manufacturing, or maintenance defects aren't the most common issues, but honestly, they're pretty serious when they do happen. Faulty parts or improper maintenance can actually lead to structural or systems failure, which is definitely a big deal. Operating in mixed airspace brings its own set of challenges. Helicopters, drones, private planes, commercial jets, and military flights might all be sharing the same airspace. This kind of complexity really raises the risk, especially in urban or congested areas. In the DC crash, investigators are currently looking into whether there was a violation in altitude limits, any instrument or recorder discrepancies, or maybe even some miscoordination with air traffic control. The loss of life and human tragedy in these events is just honestly heartbreaking. Each fatal crash shatters families, leaving a lasting impact that's hard to put into words. The DC crash, for example, claimed 67 lives across both aircraft. Property damage can be devastating too. In some cases, like what happened in Philadelphia, houses were hit and fires started, adding yet another layer of tragedy to these incidents. These accidents don't just end with the crash itself. There's a lot of regulatory scrutiny and legal actions that follow. Lawsuits have emerged, for example, against American Airlines, the FAA, and even the US government after the DC collision. You know, these crashes really attract a lot of media attention, and honestly, they tend to raise fear among the public. But the thing is, statistically, flying still remains way safer than many other alternatives out there. When it comes to safety reforms and recommendations, agencies like the National Transportation Safety Board and the FAA usually step in. They often propose procedural changes, airspace reorganization, sometimes even route bans, like on certain helicopter corridors, along with better monitoring and stricter rules overall. So, the economic repercussions here are pretty significant. Insurance costs, extensive investigations, litigation, and operational changes, all of these have a real cost impact on airlines and every stakeholder in the aviation industry. Now, while this all might sound a bit grim, there is actually hope and progress. Aviation, statistically, is still one of the safest modes of transportation out there. Every single day, many flights operate without any incident. And, every crash is studied in depth, with reforms put in place to help prevent anything like that from happening again. New technologies, like better sensors, advanced collision avoidance systems, improved maintenance diagnostics, and safer air traffic control systems, are being put to use. Plus, awareness, vigilance, ongoing training, and stricter oversight all work together to make those incremental improvements in safety. We really must never become complacent. Each life lost demands serious introspection, better systems, and a commitment to continuous improvement.